Hey, tonight we're diving into a story about one of the most dramatic moments in English history. We're going back nearly 1,000 years to discover why it absolutely sucked to be a Saxon during the Norman Conquest. It's a tale of invasion, hardship, and dramatic change that shaped England forever. But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1066. The morning air is crisp, filled with the scent of wood smoke from the hearth fire that burned low through the night. You're in a small wooden house with a thatched roof in a village just outside of York in northern England. The good news is that you're alive in one of the wealthiest kingdoms in Western Europe. The bad news? Everything is about to change. You stretch and rise from your straw-filled mattress that sits on a simple wooden frame. Your woolen blanket was warm enough for the night, but the morning chill makes you reach quickly for your clothing. As a middle-class Saxon, you're not wealthy, but not a poor peasant either. You pull on a linen undershirt, the fabric rough but comfortable against your skin, then add a woolen tunic that reaches to your knees. The cloth was woven by the women of your household during the winter months. Around your waist goes a leather belt with a small knife hanging from it, useful for everything from cutting meat to whittling wood. Your wife is already up, stoking the central hearth fire that serves for both warmth and cooking. The smoke rises toward a hole in the roof, though much of it lingers inside, making your eyes sting slightly. You're used to it, though. The floor beneath your feet is packed earth, scattered with fresh rushes to help keep it clean. Your two children still sleep in the corner on their shared pallet. Hungry? Your wife asks, already knowing the answer. She hands you a wooden bowl of porridge made from oats, sweetened with a precious spoonful of honey. There's no sugar in your world. Honey is the only sweetener available, and it's valuable. You eat using a wooden spoon, savouring the warm comfort of the simple food. Did you hear about the comet? You ask your wife between mouthfuls. Everyone's talking about it. She nods gravely. A bad omen, they say. The old women in the market say it means trouble is coming. In April of this year, a strange sight appeared in the sky. What we now know was Halley's Comet. To the people of your time, it was a frightening omen, a sign from God that great changes were coming. Little did you know how right they would be. The year has been tumultuous already. Back in January, your king, Edward the Confessor, died after ruling for over 20 years. Edward had no children, so the succession was uncertain. The throne was taken by Harold Godwinson, a powerful earl who claimed Edward had named him heir on his deathbed. But there were other claimants, notably William, Duke of Normandy across the Channel, who insisted that Edward had promised him the throne years earlier. You've heard the news through travellers and merchants who pass through your village. Most people don't really care who sits on the throne in distant London as long as life continues as normal. The king seems far away from your daily concerns of tending your small plot of land, trading at the local market, and ensuring your family has enough to eat. But the whispers of possible invasion have been growing louder. William of Normandy, is descended from Vikings who settled in northern France. The Normans, you've heard, are a fierce people, disciplined, ambitious, and ruthless. Not so different from the Vikings who once raided England's shores, though they now speak French and have adopted many French customs. As you finish your breakfast, you hear the church bell ringing in the distance. It's time to head to your work. You're a blacksmith, a respected position in the village. Your forge stands a short distance from your home, a simple structure with stone walls and an open front where you work with metal every day. "I'll be back by midday," you tell your wife, who nods as she wakes the children for their morning chores. The walk to your forge takes you through your village. It's a collection of similar wooden houses, most with thatched roofs, arranged somewhat randomly along a dirt road. There's a small stone church at its centre, the only stone building in sight, and around it the village unfolds organically without the rigid planning that Roman towns once had. People are already stirring, women drawing water from the village well, men heading to the fields, and children feeding chickens or pigs. You exchange greetings with neighbours as you pass. In your Saxon world, community is everything. Everyone knows everyone else. And village life is bound by ties of mutual obligation and assistance. At your forge, you start by rekindling the fire. Today you need to make some nails for a new barn being built, and later repair a plough that broke yesterday. It's detailed work that you've mastered over years of apprenticeship and practice. The rhythmic clang of your hammer striking hot metal will soon fill the air. As you work, sweating in the heat of the forge, a rider passes through the village. He stops to water his horse at the trough near your workshop. You recognise him as a messenger for the local thane, the Saxon nobleman who holds authority over this area. "Any news?" you ask casually, setting aside your hammer for a moment. The rider looks grim. "King Harold has gathered the Fyrd. The Norwegians have invaded in the north." This is troubling news. The Fyrd is the militia, made up of free men who can be called to fight when needed. If the king is calling them up, the threat must be serious. You know you might be summoned too. All able-bodied men can be required to serve. "How soon?" you ask, thinking of your unfinished work and your family. "They've already landed," the messenger says. "Harold is marching north now, and there are rumours that the Norman Duke might use this chance to land in the south. 2 invasions at once. That would be catastrophic." You thank the messenger for the news as he rides on to spread word to the next village. Your day continues with the familiar rhythm of the forge, but your mind is troubled. By midday, you return home to find your wife baking bread in the clay oven outside your house. The children are helping her, the older one kneading dough while the younger gathers sticks for the fire. "The Fyrd has been called," you tell her quietly, so the children don't hear. "Harold of Norway has invaded." Her face pales. "Will you have to go?" "I don't know yet. Perhaps the Then will need me to stay and make weapons instead. As a skilled craftsman, you might be more valuable making swords and arrowheads than wielding them yourself, but nothing is certain." The next few days pass with growing tension. News trickles in from travellers. King Harold marched his army north with incredible speed and confronted the Norwegian forces at Stamford Bridge on September 25th. Against all odds, the English won a decisive victory. Harald Hardrada, the Norwegian king, was killed along with Harold's own rebellious brother, Tostig. A cheer goes up in the village alehouse when this news arrives. England is safe. The Saxon king has proven himself a worthy leader, protecting his people from the invaders. Your relief is short-lived. Just 3 days after the victory at Stamford Bridge, William of Normandy lands on the south coast with a massive invasion force. With the English army exhausted from their forced march north and the battle they've just fought, they now have to turn around and march hundreds of miles south to meet this new threat. King Harold doesn't hesitate. He immediately heads south with his household troops, the elite warriors known as housecarls. These are professional soldiers, unlike the Fyrd, which is made up of ordinary men like you. The housecarls are armed with deadly 2-handed battle axes and are feared fighters. As the king marches south, word comes that all able men should join the fight. The Then comes to your village personally, selecting men to join him. To your relief, he agrees that you're more valuable making weapons than carrying them. Your hammer rings with renewed purpose as you forge arrowheads and repair mail shirts late into the night. The village holds its breath, waiting for news. Women gather at the well, sharing worries about their husbands and sons who've joined the Fyrd. Children play at battles with sticks for swords, too young to understand the real danger. Then, on October 14th, the two armies meet near Hastings on the south coast. You'll only learn the details much later, but on that day, everything changes. King Harold takes a defensive position on Senlac Hill. His men form a shield wall, a tightly packed line of warriors with their shields overlapping, presenting a formidable barrier to attackers. The Saxons are fighting on foot, as is their tradition. The Normans, in contrast, are renowned for their cavalry, knights on horseback wearing chainmail and carrying lances. The battle begins with Norman archers firing uphill, but the Saxon shield wall holds firm. When William sends his infantry to attack, they make little progress against the wall of shields and axes. Then he commits his cavalry, but even these mounted knights struggle to break through. At one point, a rumour spreads through the Norman ranks that Duke William has been killed. Seeing some Normans retreating, Saxon fighters break from their position to pursue them. This proves to be a fatal mistake. William, very much alive, raises his helmet to show his face to his men and rallies his forces. The pursuing Saxons, now isolated from the main force, are surrounded and cut down. William changes tactics. He orders his archers to fire high into the air so that arrows rain down on the Saxons from above. As the day wears on, the Saxon line begins to thin. In the late afternoon, King Harold himself is struck down, according to legend, by an arrow through his eye. Though the truth may never be known for certain. With their leader fallen, the Saxon resistance crumbles. Back in your village, the wait for news seems endless. Days pass with only rumours. Then survivors begin to straggle back, bringing the devastating truth. The king is dead, the battle lost. England has fallen to the Norman invaders. At first, life continues much as before. The Norman army hasn't yet reached the north. William is proclaimed King of England and crowned in Westminster Abbey on Christmas Day 1066, but his control extends only to the south and southeast. For the moment, your daily life remains unchanged. But you know this won't last. The Norman conquest has only just begun. Winter settles over the land, the cold seeping through the walls of your home despite the fire that burns day and night. Food is carefully rationed. Winter is always a lean time, with stored grain and salted meat being the main sustenance until spring brings fresh growth. Your children play with simple wooden toys you've carved for them. A horse, a knight, a tiny sword. Your wife spins wool by the fire, the drop spindle twirling hypnotically as she works. Outside, snow dusts the thatched roofs of the village, transforming the muddy road into a pristine white path. In this quiet moment, it's almost possible to forget the upheaval that's begun, but whispers from travellers who brave the winter roads tell of changes in the south. Norman knights are being granted lands that once belonged to Saxon nobles. New laws are being imposed. Those who resist are dealt with harshly. You wonder what this will mean for your village, your family, your way of life. The Saxons have faced conquests before, the Romans, the Vikings, and have endured, but something tells you this time is different. The Normans aren't just raiders looking for plunder. They're here to stay, to rule, to transform England into something new. As you drift off to sleep that night, the fire crackling softly in the hearth, you can't help but feel that the world you've known all your life is slipping away, like shadows retreating before the dawn. The new year, 1067, arrives with little celebration. Usually there would be feasting and merrymaking to mark midwinter, but the mood is sombre this year. Even the 12th night festivities are subdued, with people gathering in smaller groups, speaking in hushed tones about what might come next. You continue your work at the forge, though orders for farm tools have decreased. Instead, more people want weapons, knives, spearheads, anything that might offer protection in uncertain times. You don't ask questions, simply fulfilling the requests as best you can. One crisp morning in early spring, as the first green shoots push through the soil in the village gardens, a rider appears. He's not a local. His clothing is different, more elaborate than what you're used to seeing. He speaks to the village reeve, the man responsible for overseeing the village and collecting taxes, in halting English with a strange accent. Word spreads quickly. He's a Norman, a representative of your new overlords coming to assess the village and its worth. The Conquest is moving north. The Norman rides around, making notes on a piece of parchment. He asks questions about the land, the number of households, what livestock is kept. The villagers answer cautiously, unsure what information might be used against them. Before he leaves, the Norman announces that a new tax will be collected soon. It's higher than what you paid to your Saxon lords. There are mutters of discontent, but no one dares speak out openly. They say the new king is building castles everywhere, your neighbour tells you later, as you share a cup of ale in the alehouse, not like anything we've ever seen before. Great wooden towers on mounds of earth surrounded by walls. They can control the whole countryside from them. You've never seen a castle. The Saxons built fortified towns, known as burhs, but the Norman castles are something different, centres of military power designed to dominate and intimidate. And they're bringing in new laws too, another man adds. Written in their language, not ours. They say we'll all have to learn French now if we want to get ahead. The language barrier is already causing problems. The Normans speak French while the common people speak English, though a version that would sound strange to modern ears, filled with words and sounds that have long since evolved or disappeared. As spring turns to summer, tensions grow. News of rebellions in various parts of the country reaches your village. Some Saxon nobles who initially submitted to William have now risen against him. The North, always independent-minded, is particularly resistant to Norman rule. In your village, life continues with cautious normalcy. You work, you eat, you sleep, your children grow. You teach your son the beginnings of your craft, showing him how to maintain the fire, how to judge the colour of heated metal, how to strike true with the hammer. But there's an undercurrent of unease in everything. When strangers appear on the road, people hurry inside. Conversations stop when certain topics arise. Everyone is waiting, wondering what will happen next. The answer comes in the autumn of 1068. William marches north with his army to quell the growing resistance. He builds castles at Warwick, Nottingham, York, Lincoln, Huntingdon and Cambridge, creating a network of Norman power centres. The message is clear. The conquest of England is not negotiable. You hear of these developments from travellers and merchants who pass through. The picture they paint is troubling. Saxon nobles deposed, their lands given to Norman knights, peasants forced to labour on the construction of the castles that will be used to control them. It's only a matter of time before they reach us, your wife says one evening, her voice low so the children won't hear. What will we do? You have no answer for her. What can you do? Flight is possible. Some Saxons have fled to Scotland or even as far as Constantinople, where they've joined the Varangian Guard, the elite Byzantine unit known for recruiting skilled warriors from northern Europe. But such a journey is beyond your means and would mean abandoning everything you've built. We endure, you finally say. We adapt. We survive. She nods, though her eyes remain worried. She knows, as you do, that survival may come at a great cost. Winter arrives again, harsher than the last. Food is scarce. The disruptions of the past year have affected harvests and the new taxes have left less for ordinary people. In your village, families share what they have, but hollow cheeks and tired eyes become more common as the cold deepens. Your forge remains busy, but increasingly it's weapons rather than tools that fill your days. The people are preparing, though for what exactly, no one quite knows. Then, in January 1069, the north erupts in open rebellion. Edgar the Aetheling, the last remaining heir of the old Saxon royal house, returns from exile in Scotland. He joins forces with the northern earls, and the people of York rise up against their Norman overlords. The garrison that William had left in York Castle is massacred, its commander, Robert Fitzrichard, among the dead. Your village is close enough to York to hear rumours of the uprising almost immediately. There's a surge of hope. Perhaps the Norman yoke can be thrown off after all. Some of the younger men talk of joining the rebels, eager to fight for Saxon freedom. You're more cautious. You've heard enough about William to know he won't accept defeat easily. His response to rebellion will be swift and merciless, and you have your family to think of. Your caution proves warranted. William marches north again, rebuilding the destroyed castle at York and punishing those involved in the uprising. But this is just the beginning. In the autumn of 1069, a new threat appears. A Danish fleet arrives, led by King Svein of Denmark. They join forces with Edgar the Aetheling and the northern rebels, creating a powerful alliance against the Normans. Once again, York falls to the anti-Norman forces. For a brief moment, it seems the tide might be turning. The Danes are formidable warriors with a long history of successful campaigns in England, combined with local knowledge and support. Could they actually drive out the Normans? William's response is decisive. He first pays off the Danes to withdraw, removing a key component of the rebel alliance. Then, rather than simply recapturing York and punishing the ringleaders, he decides on a strategy that will eliminate the possibility of northern resistance once and for all. As December of 1069 approaches, rumours reach your village of Norman forces approaching. But this isn't just an army coming to restore order, it's something much worse. They're destroying everything, a breathless messenger tells the gathered villagers. Burning houses, killing livestock, salting fields so nothing will grow. They want to make sure no army can be supported here, no rebellion can take root. This is the beginning of what will become known as the Harrying of the North, William's scorched earth campaign to break the spirit of northern England forever. You look at your family, at your home, at the forge where you've worked all your life, and you know that everything is about to change. The Norman Conquest, which had seemed like a distant political change, has finally reached your doorstep in the most devastating way possible. The night is cold, the stars hard and bright in the winter sky. You sit with your family around the hearth fire, all your most valuable possessions packed and ready to move at a moment's notice. Outside, the village is quiet, but it's the quiet of fear, not peace. "What will happen to us?" your daughter asks, her small face solemn in the firelight. You wish you had an answer that could comfort her. Instead, you simply draw her close. "We'll stay together," you say. "That's what matters most." But as the flames cast dancing shadows on the walls of your home, you can't help but wonder if even that modest promise will be possible to keep in the days to come. The warning comes at dawn. A boy from a neighbouring village arrives breathless, his face streaked with soot and tears. "They're coming," he gasps. "The Normans, they've burned everything. Towton is gone. They killed everyone who didn't run fast enough." Towton is less than half a day's walk away. The Norman forces are moving methodically, village by village, farm by farm, leaving nothing behind but ash and death. You've prepared as best you can. For weeks you've been hiding some food in the forest, teaching your children where to run if the worst happens. Now, the worst is upon you. "We need to leave," you tell your wife, who is already gathering the small bundles of possessions you've prepared. Now. There's no time for sentiment. You take only what you can carry. Some food, a knife, a tinderbox, a blanket for each person. Your tools are too heavy to bring, except for a small hammer tucked into your belt. You look at your forge one last time, remembering the years of work, the skills passed down from your father, the legacy you hoped to leave your son. "Papa, hurry!" Your daughter's voice pulls you back to the moment. Outside, the village is in chaos. Some families are fleeing immediately, carrying children and dragging elderly relatives. Others are frantically trying to gather more possessions or hitch oxen to carts. A few stand in shock, unable to process what's happening. The village reeve is shouting, trying to organise an orderly evacuation, but fear has taken hold. You gather your family close and begin walking toward the north. The forest there is deep and might offer some shelter, at least temporarily. You're not alone. Streams of people are leaving other nearby villages too, all heading away from the advancing Norman forces. Children cry from hunger and exhaustion. Old people struggle to keep pace. The roads are choked with desperate humanity. By midday, you've walked several miles. Your son carries your youngest child on his back when her legs grow too tired. Your wife's face is set in grim determination. No one speaks much. What is there to say? From a hilltop, you look back. On the horizon, columns of smoke rise into the sky, marking where villages and farms are burning. The Normans are thorough in their destruction. This is William's response to the Northern Rebellion, not just to punish those who fought against him, but to ensure no one in the north will ever have the resources to rise up again. It's a calculated cruelty designed to break not just bodies, but spirits. You press on, joining the growing stream of refugees. Among them, you recognise people from neighbouring villages, some you've traded with or met at markets. Now, you're all equal in your desperation. Nightfall brings new challenges. The temperature drops, and without proper shelter, the cold seeps into your bones. You find a small clearing where other families have stopped. Together you build small fires, sharing what little wood you can gather. The flames offer meagre warmth, but make you visible, a risk you must take to survive the night. Your wife manages to make a thin porridge from the grain you carried. It's barely enough to quiet the children's hunger, but you must ration carefully. Who knows how long you'll need to survive on what you have? Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by distant screams and the orange glow of fire on the horizon. The Normans continue their work through the night. The next day brings more walking, more refugees joining your desperate caravan. Stories spread tales of unimaginable brutality. The Normans aren't just burning buildings, they're slaughtering livestock, destroying stored food, even salting fields so nothing will grow. This isn't just war, it's the systematic destruction of an entire region's ability to sustain life. Why are they doing this? Your son asks, his young face troubled beyond his years. What can you tell him? That this is how power asserts itself, that the conquered must be broken to ensure they never rise again. These are harsh lessons for a child. They want us to submit, you finally say, to accept their rule without question. Will we? He asks. You have no answer. Days blur together as you continue moving north. Your food supplies dwindle alarmingly. The forests offer some forage, berries, nuts, roots, but it's late autumn and nature's bounty is sparse. You teach your children which plants are safe to eat, knowledge passed down through generations that now becomes crucial for survival. Other refugees aren't so fortunate. You pass bodies by the roadside, the elderly who couldn't keep up, the sick who succumbed to exposure, the weak who simply gave up. Your wife shields the children's eyes from these sights, but there's no protecting them from the reality of your situation. After a week of walking, you reach a makeshift camp where hundreds of displaced Saxons have gathered. It's in a valley protected by steep hills, somewhat hidden from the main roads. Here, people are trying to organise to create some semblance of community amid chaos. A man who introduces himself as Leofric, once a Thane but now a refugee like yourself, has taken charge. He's established a system for sharing what little food is available and organised patrols to warn of approaching soldiers. We can't stay here long, he tells the gathered refugees. The Normans are moving north and they'll find us eventually, but we can rest, gather strength and plan our next move. For a few days, there's a fragile sense of safety. Your children play with others their age, momentarily forgetting the trauma they've experienced. Your wife joins the women who are weaving rough shelters from branches and whatever cloth can be spared. You help hunt for food, though game is scarce. Too many hungry people have already swept through these woods. On the third night in the camp, a patrol returns with grim news. Norman soldiers are approaching, less than half a day's ride away. They're following the refugee trails, the scout reports, hunting down anyone who fled. Panic ripples through the camp. Some want to flee immediately, others argue for sending fighters to ambush the Normans, and some simply weep, too exhausted to face more running. Leofric makes the decision. We split up. Small groups have a better chance of avoiding detection. Head east toward the coast or north towards Scotland. The Normans can't burn the entire country. By morning, the camp is dissolving, people heading in different directions in groups of 20 or 30. You join a band heading northeast toward the coast. Perhaps there will be fishing villages there, places to find food and work. The journey becomes increasingly desperate. Winter is settling in, and snowflakes begin to swirl in the bitter wind. Your family's shoes are falling apart, their feet wrapped in rags. The children's faces grow gaunt, their eyes too large in hollowed faces. Your wife doesn't complain, but you see how she gives portions of her food to the children when she thinks you aren't looking. Disease spreads among the refugees. A cough starts in one person, then spreads through your group. Without proper shelter or nutrition, bodies can't fight off illness. Each morning, there are fewer of you to continue the journey. One night, huddled beneath a makeshift shelter of branches, your youngest daughter develops a fever. Her small body burns with heat while she shivers uncontrollably. Your wife holds her through the night, singing softly, applying cold cloths to her forehead. You and your son take turns searching for herbs that might help, but in the winter forest there's little to be found. By morning, her fever has broken, but she's weak, barely conscious. You fashion a sled from branches to pull her, knowing she can't walk. We need to find proper shelter, proper food, your wife says, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. She won't survive like this. You've been avoiding villages and towns, fearing Norman patrols, but now survival demands risk. The nearest settlement, according to one of your fellow refugees, is a small coastal fishing village about a day's journey away. It's so small the Normans might have overlooked it, the man suggests, though his tone makes clear how unlikely that is. You have no choice. You set out for the village, pulling your daughter on the sled, while your wife and son gather what edible plants they can find along the way. The village comes into view late the next day. From a distance, it seems intact. No burned buildings or destroyed fields visible. Smoke rises from several chimneys, a sign of habitation. Hope flickers to life. With caution, your group approaches. A watchman spots you and calls out an alarm. But it's in English, not Norman French. A good sign. Men appear with spears and bows, regarding your ragged band with suspicion. We seek shelter, you call out. We're refugees from the south. The Normans destroyed our homes. The village headman steps forward, studying your group. How do we know you're not scouts for Norman forces? You gesture to your starving children, your desperate companions. Look at us. We've been walking for weeks. My daughter is sick. We need help. After a tense moment, the headman nods. We'll give you shelter for the night, but be warned, we have little to spare. The Normans haven't reached us yet, but we've taken in refugees before. Our stores are strained. The village is indeed small, perhaps 20 households clustered near the sea. They've been fortunate so far, remote enough to escape William's attention. The villagers are cautious but not unkind. They share their limited food and provide a barn where your group can sleep out of the wind. An old woman, skilled in healing, examines your daughter. She prepares a tea from dried herbs and honey, coaxing the child to drink it slowly. Rest and food, she prescribes. That's the only medicine that will truly help. For 3 days, you remain in the village. Your daughter's strength begins to return, though she's still weak. The villagers, while generous, are clearly anxious about the strain on their resources. Discussions begin about what comes next. "You can't stay," the headman tells your group bluntly. "We barely have enough to get through winter ourselves." "Where can we go?" someone asks. "The Normans have destroyed everything to the south." "North to Scotland," suggests one man. "King Malcolm has been taking in English refugees. Or we could try to reach a port, find passage to Denmark or Norway," says another. You listen to the discussions, weighing options, none of them good. Your family has survived the immediate danger, but long-term survival remains uncertain. On the fourth day, a fishing boat returns to the village with ominous news. Norman ships have been spotted along the coast. They're methodically checking each settlement, continuing their campaign of destruction. "They'll be here within days," the fisherman warns. The village erupts in frantic activity. Some begin packing to flee, others argue for hiding in the nearby caves until the danger passes, and some suggest trying to negotiate with the Normans. "Negotiate?" scoffs a refugee who arrived before your group. "You don't understand. They're not looking for submission. They're erasing us. The land matters to them, not the people on it. You gather your family and the few possessions you've managed to keep. Your daughter is still weak but can walk short distances. The decision feels impossible. Stay and risk Norman brutality, or flee into the winter landscape with few supplies and no destination. In the end, you choose to move on. A group of about 40 people, including locals and refugees, decide to head north towards Scotland. The journey will be hard, especially in winter, but at least there's the promise of sanctuary at the end. Before you leave, the village healer gives your wife a small pouch of dried herbs for your daughter. "For strength," she says. And this, she presses a small wooden amulet into your hand. "For protection." The amulet is carved with an intricate knot pattern, an old Saxon design meant to ward off evil. You're not sure if you believe in such things, but you accept it gratefully and hang it around your daughter's neck. Your group departs at dawn, moving along coastal paths when possible to avoid the worst of the inland snow. The going is slow, with children and elderly members struggling to keep pace, but there's a grim determination now: Scotland or death, with no middle ground. 2 days into this new journey, your lookouts spot a Norman patrol, mounted knights accompanied by foot soldiers, moving along the main road that parallels your route. Everyone freezes, ducking behind whatever cover is available. The Normans are less than a quarter-mile away, close enough that you can hear the jingle of their equipment and catches of their conversation in French. They appear to be heading toward the fishing village you just left. A terrible weight settles in your chest. Those who chose to stay behind, what will happen to them? You think of the old healer who helped your daughter, the fisherman who warned of the approaching threat, the children who played with yours during your brief respite. But there's nothing you can do. Your own family's survival must be your priority now. The Norman patrol passes without spotting your group. Once they're well out of sight, you continue north, now moving with even greater caution. That night, from your hilltop campsite, you see the orange glow of distant fires to the south, the fishing village most likely. Another community erased. Weeks pass in this fashion. Your group moves steadily northward, avoiding roads and settlements when possible, always watching for Norman patrols. Sometimes you must risk entering villages to trade what little you have for food. A knife, a piece of jewellery saved from your flight, your labour for a day's work. The reception varies. Some villages welcome you, sharing what they can spare. Others drive you away, fearing that helping refugees will bring Norman attention down upon them. You can't blame them. Fear makes people cruel. Winter deepens. The snow lies thick on the ground, making travel exhausting. Food becomes increasingly scarce. Your group hunts when possible, but game is limited, and you're competing with wolves and other predators made bold by hunger. Despite your best efforts, people begin to die. An elderly man simply doesn't wake one morning, frozen in his sleep. A young mother who has been giving her food to her children collapses from starvation. A teenage boy steps through thin ice while crossing a stream and develops a fever that takes him within days. Each death diminishes your group, not just in numbers, but in spirit. You hold your family closer, watching with growing fear as your children's ribs become more visible beneath their skin, as your wife's face grows more hollow. Then, one bitterly cold morning, your scouts return with unexpected news. A Norman castle lies ahead, blocking the most direct route north. This is something new. Unlike the wooden Motte and Bailey castles hastily erected after the initial conquest, this is a more permanent structure being built of stone. It commands the valley that offers the easiest passage through the hills, a strategic choke point that will allow the Normans to control movement in the region. We'll have to go around, Leofric decides, through the high passes. It's a dangerous choice. The mountain paths are treacherous in winter, with the risk of avalanches and exposure to deadly cold. But the alternative, encountering Norman forces, is certain death. The detour adds days to your journey and tests the limits of your endurance. The wind howls through the mountain passes, cutting through your inadequate clothing like knives. At night, you huddle together for warmth, your family a tight knot of shared body heat beneath thin blankets. One morning, as you emerge from your shelter, you see something remarkable, a rider approaching, but not a Norman. He wears the distinctive dress of a Scottish border lord, and behind him ride a dozen men. Leofric moves forward to meet him, hands raised to show he carries no weapons. The conversation is tense at first. Your group could be bandits or Norman spies, but gradually the Scottish lord's posture relaxes as he understands your situation. King Malcolm has offered sanctuary to those fleeing William's butchery, he tells you. We've heard of the horrors in the south. There are already thousands of English refugees in Scotland. For the first time in months, genuine hope flickers to life. The Scottish Lord provides your group with food, salted fish, oat cakes, and a skin of strong spirits that burns going down but warms you from the inside. He offers guidance on the safest route to cross the border and warns of areas where Norman influence has already spread. William's reach grows longer by the day, he cautions. Even the Scottish king must be careful not to provoke him too directly. With renewed strength and spirits, your group continues the journey. The Scottish Lord's supplies make a critical difference, giving you the energy to navigate the difficult terrain. 3 days later, you cross an invisible line. There's no physical marker, but Leofric, who has travelled these lands before, announces that you've entered Scotland. A ragged cheer goes up from your group, quickly hushed for fear of drawing attention. You're not safe yet. The border regions are contested territory, with both Scottish and Norman patrols. But you're closer to sanctuary than you've been since fleeing your village. The landscape begins to change, becoming more rugged and mountainous. Villages here speak a different dialect, a mix of English, Norse and Celtic languages that's difficult to understand, but the people are cautiously welcoming, especially when they learn you're fleeing the Normans. Many of your countrymen have passed this way, an innkeeper tells you when your group stops to barter for food. The king has settled some on royal lands, others have joined his army. He's happy to have experienced Saxon warriors. This news brings mixed feelings. Sanctuary is available, but at what cost? Will you become a soldier in a foreign army? A tenant farmer on a Scottish lord's land? What future can you build for your children? These questions occupy your mind as your group continues toward Edinburgh, where, you're told, representatives of the king are coordinating the settlement of English refugees. The journey remains hard, but there's a difference now. You're moving towards something, not just away from destruction. Your wife notices the change in you. You're standing straighter, she observes one evening as you make camp. We might survive this, you reply, almost afraid to voice the hope aloud. She takes your hand, her fingers thin but strong. We already have. You look at your children gathering firewood nearby. They're gaunt and their clothes are in tatters, but they're alive. Your daughter has regained some strength, though she'll always be marked by this ordeal. Your son has grown up too quickly, taking on responsibilities no child should bear. But they've survived the harrying of the North, William's campaign of systematic destruction that will leave Yorkshire and surrounding counties devastated for generations. The Domesday Book, which will record England's lands and resources some 20 years in the future, will still list much of Yorkshire as waste, the bureaucratic term for land producing no tax revenue, because it's been destroyed or abandoned. You don't know this yet, of course. You only know that your world has been shattered, that you've been driven from the land of your ancestors, forced to seek refuge in a foreign kingdom. As your fire burns low that night, you look up at the stars, the same stars that shine over your abandoned village, over the Norman castles rising across England, over William's Court in London. The world has changed irrevocably, and you with it. "Tell us a story, Papa," your daughter requests, leaning against your side. "About home." So you begin to speak, describing the village as it was before the Normans came, the houses with their thatched roofs, the church where you celebrated festivals and marked the passing seasons, the forge where you worked metal into tools and weapons. You speak of neighbours and friends, of harvest festivals and winter celebrations, of the rhythms of a life now lost. Your children listen, their eyes growing heavy with sleep. This is important, you realise. These memories, these stories, they connect your children to their heritage, to the England that existed before the conquest. The Normans may take your land, your home, your livelihood, but they cannot take these stories unless you let them die. So you commit to remembering, to passing on what came before. It's a small act of resistance, but perhaps the most important one available to you now. As your children drift off to sleep, your wife speaks softly. "What will we do in Scotland?" You consider the question. "I still have my skills. People always need a blacksmith." She nods. "And I can weave, spin, sew. We'll build something new." "Something new," you echo, looking into the darkness beyond your small fire. "But we won't forget what was lost." In the distance, a wolf howls, a lonely sound that perfectly captures the mixture of grief and determination you feel. You've survived William's attempt to break the North, but at terrible cost. Now comes the challenge of building a new life from the shattered pieces of the old. You add another branch to the fire, watching the sparks rise toward the star-filled sky. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but for now, your family is together and moving towards safety. In these dark times, perhaps that's as much as anyone can hope for. As sleep begins to claim you, you hold tight to that thought, a small flame of hope in the long, cold night of the Norman conquest. Edinburgh rises before you like something from another world. Having spent your life in a small northern village, you've never seen anything like this hilltop fortress. Stone buildings cluster around a massive castle that dominates the surrounding landscape. Smoke rises from hundreds of chimneys, and the sounds of a bustling city. Traders calling their wares, animals braying, hammers striking metal, reach you even at a distance. "It's so big," your son whispers, awestruck. Your journey has taken nearly 2 months. Winter is giving way to early spring, the first green shoots appearing in the Scottish countryside. Your group has dwindled further. Some chose to settle in smaller towns along the way. Others succumbed to the hardships of travel. Only about 20 of you remain, bound together by shared suffering and the memory of homes destroyed. As you approach the city gates, guards eye your ragged band with suspicion. Leofric steps forward, explaining your situation in careful terms. The guards' expressions soften slightly. "More English refugees," one says to another. "King Malcolm's orders are to direct them to the steward's office." You're allowed to enter, though the guards warn you to cause no trouble. The city streets are crowded, the buildings pressing close on either side. People stare at your group, your torn clothes and gaunt faces marking you clearly as displaced persons. The steward's office is in a stone building near the castle. Here, a harried official listens to Leofric's account of your journey, making occasional notes on a piece of parchment. Yes, another sad tale, he says, not unkindly, but with the weariness of someone who has heard similar stories many times. You're not the first to flee William's cruelty, nor will you be the last, I fear. He examines his records. We have some land available about 20 miles west of here. Good farming soil, though it needs clearing. Several English families have already settled there. Leofric turns to your group. What say you? Shall we take this offer? There's a brief discussion. Some of your companions are disappointed. They'd hoped to stay in the city, where their crafts might find ready markets. Others are pleased at the prospect of land, something many never had in England. I'm a blacksmith, you tell the steward. I need a place to practice my craft. The man considers this. The settlement needs tradesmen. You could set up a forge there. Or, he adds, seeing your hesitation, there's a smithy in Leith down by the harbour, seeking apprentices and assistants. The master there is English himself, fled after Hastings. A choice, then. Join the new Saxon settlement in the countryside, or remain near the city working for another blacksmith. You look at your family, considering what would be best for them. Your wife speaks up. The city is crowded, the air thick with smoke. Our children need space, clean air, and we've always lived in a village. Her words decide you. We'll go to the settlement, you tell the steward. He nods, making a note. You'll leave tomorrow. There's a wayhouse for refugees where you can spend the night. Food is provided. That night, your family sleeps indoors for the first time in months. The wayhouse is simple, a large hall with pallets arranged on the floor. But after so long sleeping rough, it feels luxurious to be sheltered from the wind and cold. Many others share the space with you, mostly English refugees, but also some Welsh and even a few Danes. Stories are exchanged in hushed voices, tales of Norman brutality, of harrowing escapes, of loved ones lost. The details differ, but the essence is the same. William's conquest has scattered English people across Europe, a diaspora born of violence. Morning brings a cart to transport the elderly and children among your group, along with what few possessions you have. The rest of you walk alongside. The steward provides a rough map and basic supplies, enough food for several days, seeds for planting, and a few simple tools. The journey takes 2 days. As promised, the land is fertile but wild, with patches of forest that need clearing before planting can begin. About 30 families have already established themselves, creating the beginnings of a village. Simple wooden houses stand in a rough circle, with fields being cleared beyond. A small wooden church rises at the centre. The Saxon refugees have already begun to rebuild the structures of their former lives. You're greeted with cautious welcome. These people understand exactly what you've endured because they've faced the same trials. An older man named Godric, who seems to have taken on leadership of the settlement, shows you where you can build your house. There's no smith here yet, he tells you, eyes lighting up when he learns your trade. We've been travelling to Leith for metalwork. Having you here will be a blessing. Over the next few weeks, you begin to establish yourselves. The community works together to help new arrivals build shelter. Your house is simple. One room with a hearth at the centre, walls of wattle and daub, a thatched roof. But it's yours. No Norman can take it from you. With help, you construct a forge near the edge of the settlement. It's primitive compared to what you had in England, but you can work with it. Some of your tools were lost in the flight north, but you fashion new ones, adapting to what materials are available. Your wife begins to cultivate a small garden planting the seeds provided by the steward and others gathered from the surrounding countryside. Your children start to lose the haunted look acquired during your flight, playing with others their age, learning the rhythms of this new place. Life settles into a pattern. It's hard work. The land demands constant attention, and building a community from nothing requires everyone's effort, but there's purpose in it and a growing sense of security. King Malcolm's protection means you no longer fear Norman soldiers appearing on the horizon. As summer approaches, your forge becomes busy. The settlement needs all manner of metal items, hinges for doors, nails for construction, ploughshares for breaking new ground, knives for daily use. Your skills are in high demand, and your status in the community grows accordingly. One evening, as your family sits outside your house enjoying the lingering twilight, a stranger approaches the settlement. He's clearly English, but better dressed than most refugees, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. "I seek the blacksmith," he announces to those nearest. "You stand. I'm the smith here." The man approaches, studying you with interest. "I'm Edgar. Some call me Etherling." A murmur runs through the onlookers. This is the last prince of the Saxon royal line, the man who might have been king had Harold Godwinson not taken the throne, the leader of multiple rebellions against William. "What brings you to our humble settlement, Lord?" you ask, uncertain how to address such a figure. "I travel between the English communities in Scotland, keeping connections alive," his voice lowers, "and gathering support for the day when we might return. This catches your attention." "Return? To England?" Edgar nods. William's hold is not as secure as he believes. There are still those who would rise against him given the chance. The Danes might yet support another invasion. The prospect stirs something in you, a flicker of hope that your exile might not be permanent, that someday you might see your homeland again, but the memory of the harrying tempters this hope with caution. "The price of failure would be high," you observe. "Higher than what our people have already paid," Edgar counters, gesturing to the settlement, this collection of displaced persons building new lives from nothing. You have no answer for that. Edgar stays for several days, speaking with various community members, sharing news from other English settlements and from England itself. His presence brings both hope and unease. Some are inspired by his vision of return and restoration, others fear the prospect of more violence, more displacement. After he leaves, the settlement buzzes with discussion of his visit. Some young men speak openly of joining any future fighting force. Others, particularly those with young families, express skepticism about risking their new security. You find yourself torn. England is your homeland, the place where generations of your ancestors lived and died. The thought of never seeing it again causes a deep ache, but you've also witnessed the devastation wrought by William's forces. Is it worth risking everything again? Your wife senses your turmoil. "What troubles you?" she asks one night as you sit by the hearth watching the fires dance. Edgar's talk of return, you admit. "Part of me wants to believe it's possible." She's quiet for a long moment. "I miss home too," she finally says, "but home is also where our family is safe. Right now, that's here." Her wisdom, as always, centers you. For now at least, your priority must be establishing security for your family in this new place. The dream of return can wait. Summer unfolds, the days growing longer and warmer. The settlement expands as more refugees arrive, each with their own tale of escape from Norman control. A watermill is constructed on the nearby stream. Fields of barley and wheat begin to ripen. Livestock, mostly sheep and some cattle, graze on the hillsides. Your forge thrives. You've taken on your son as an apprentice, teaching him the skills passed down to you. He shows natural talent, his hands already developing the strength and precision the work requires. Watching him at the anvil fills you with quiet pride. Your daughter helps your wife with the garden, which now produces vegetables and herbs in abundance. She's also learning to weave from one of the older women in the settlement, a skill that will serve her well. One day, a merchant arrives from Edinburgh, bringing goods to trade outside and news from the wider world. Around your evening fire, he shares what he's heard. William's reach grows longer, he reports. He's extended his control north to the Tees and west into Wales. Castles are rising everywhere, stone sentinels watching over conquered lands. And the people? The English? Someone asks. The merchant's expression darkens. Those who survived the harrying face a hard road. New lords demand higher taxes than the old. English laws are being replaced by Norman ones. Justice comes with a French accent now. He continues with specific accounts. Saxon nobles dispossessed, their lands given to Norman knights, English bishops replaced by Norman clergy, entire villages forced to labour on castle construction, new forests declared royal hunting grounds with harsh penalties for any commoner found hunting there. It's as if they want to erase everything English, the merchant concludes. Language, law, custom, all replaced by Norman ways. The news settles heavily on the community. Many have still harboured hopes of eventual return. Now those hopes seem increasingly distant. Later, unable to sleep, you step outside your house. The night is clear, stars scattered across the sky like silver dust. The settlement is quiet except for the occasional cry of a baby or the bark of a dog. You think about those who remained behind or fled to other places. What has become of them? Are they adapting to Norman rule, learning French, accepting their new reality? Or are they resisting in whatever small ways they can, preserving English identity despite everything? Your mind turns to the forge you left behind, the village now probably burned to ashes. You wonder if anything remains of your former life, or if it's been completely erased as if you never existed there at all. A soft sound interrupts your thoughts. Your wife has followed you outside, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders against the night chill. Remembering, she asks, knowing you too well. You nod, wondering what's left. She slips her hand into yours. We're left. Our children, our knowledge, our stories. William can burn villages, but he can't burn what's in here. She taps her head, then places her hand over her heart. Or here. Her words remind you of something important. The conquest isn't just about land and power. It's also about memory, identity, the continuation of a people and their ways of life. The realization clarifies something for you. Whether or not you ever return to England, your task now is to preserve what you can of Saxon culture, to ensure your children know the stories, the crafting techniques, the seasonal celebrations that define your people. The next day you begin to act on this understanding. In the evening, after work is done, you gather not just your children, but others from the settlement as well. You tell stories of England before the Normans came, tales of Saxon kings and heroes, of festivals and customs of the land as it was. Others join in, adding their own memories. A former monk recites poetry in the Old English style, his voice rising and falling in the distinctive rhythmic pattern. An older woman teaches traditional songs to the children. A carpenter demonstrates techniques passed down through generations of Saxon craftsmen. These gatherings become a regular occurrence, a way of maintaining connection to what's been lost. They also strengthen the community, binding together people from different parts of England through shared cultural memory. Autumn arrives, bringing with it the harvest. The settlement's first crops are gathered, stored carefully for the winter ahead. There's a tentative celebration, not as elaborate as the harvest festivals of pre-conquest England, but a meaningful acknowledgement of this milestone. During the celebration, news arrives from Edinburgh. King Malcolm has married Margaret, sister of Edgar the Aetheling, formally aligning himself with the English royal line. The marriage reinforces Malcolm's support for the English refugees, giving you greater confidence in your settlement's future. Winter follows, harsher than those you knew in England. Snow blankets the settlement for weeks at a time. The houses, hastily built during the spring and summer, prove inadequate against the cold. Drafts whistle through gaps in the walls, and frost forms on the inside of thatched roofs. Your forge becomes a gathering place, the heat of the fire drawing people seeking warmth. You work throughout the winter, creating better tools for spring planting, repairing items damaged by the harsh conditions, fashioning simple iron fittings to help strengthen the houses against future winters. Food becomes scarce as the season progresses. The harvest, while successful, was limited by the late start to planting. Everyone's portions grow smaller. You think often of those still in northern England, where William's destruction has left little to harvest at all. How many are starving this winter? How many children like yours won't see the spring? Your family survives. Though all of you lose weight you can ill afford to lose. Your daughter falls ill with a winter cough that lingers for weeks, reminding you how fragile your new security remains. Spring's arrival brings immense relief. As the snow melts and green returns to the landscape, the settlement bursts into activity. Fields are expanded, new houses built with improvements based on winter's harsh lessons, more livestock acquired through trade with neighbouring Scottish communities. Your forge is busier than ever. You've become essential to the settlement's growth, your skills enabling expansion and improvement. Your status has grown accordingly. People seek your advice on matters beyond metalwork, recognising the wisdom you've gained through your journey. One bright morning, as you work with your son at the anvil, a rider approaches the settlement. He wears the livery of King Malcolm's court and carries a sealed message. The message, read aloud by the settlement's priest, one of the few who can read, contains unexpected news. King Malcolm is establishing a formal coalition of English settlements with representatives to advise him on matters affecting the refugee communities. Your settlement is invited to send one person to participate. To your surprise, the community chooses you as their representative. You have a steady head, Godric explains, and you understand both what we've lost and what we're building here. This new responsibility takes you to Edinburgh monthly. There, you meet with representatives from other English communities scattered across Scotland, some settlements like yours, others integrated into existing Scottish towns and villages. In these meetings, you learn more about the situation in England. William's control continues to strengthen. He's ordered a great survey of his kingdom, recording every piece of land, every animal, every resource, to ensure proper taxation. The Norman system of feudalism is being firmly established, with all land belonging ultimately to the king, then parcelled out to lords who swear loyalty to him. You also hear stories of resistance. Not all English have accepted Norman dominance quietly. In the fens of East Anglia, a rebel named Hereward continues to defy William's forces, using the marshy landscape to his advantage. In other places, there are smaller acts of defiance, refusing to learn French, maintaining English customs despite Norman disapproval, preserving Saxon stories and songs. These accounts both inspire and trouble you. The courage of those who resist deserves admiration, but you've seen firsthand the brutality of Norman reprisals. Each act of defiance risks bringing down more suffering on communities already struggling to survive. During one such meeting, a representative from a coastal settlement brings dramatic news. William has ordered all English monasteries to hand over their treasures: gold, silver, precious stones, religious artifacts. The wealth of generations dedicated to God is being systematically claimed by the conquering king. He fears rebellion, explains the messenger. He needs gold to pay his soldiers, to build more castles. He takes it wherever he can find it. This seizure of religious treasures shocks even those who have become numb to Norman excesses. It represents not just theft, but sacrilege. A king supposedly blessed by the Pope plundering the church itself. Is there nothing sacred to him? Someone asks in dismay. The question lingers with you as you return to your settlement. William's conquest seems to know no limits, respecting no tradition, no boundary. What began as a disputed succession has become the systematic dismantling of English society and its replacement with something foreign. Yet life continues. Your settlement grows more established with each passing season. New children are born, the first generation of English who will know Scotland as their home. Houses are improved, fields expanded, trade relationships established with neighbouring communities. Your own family finds a measure of prosperity. Your forge produces not just utilitarian items now, but also decorative pieces that fetch good prices in Edinburgh's markets. Your son has become a skilled smith in his own right, working alongside you as a partner rather than an apprentice. Your daughter has married a young man from another English settlement, bringing the two communities closer together. One summer evening, as you sit outside enjoying the lingering daylight, your wife beside you and your settlement thriving around you, you find yourself reflecting on the journey that brought you here. The pain of losing your home remains, a dull ache that never quite disappears. You still dream sometimes of your village as it was, waking with a sharp pang of loss. But alongside that pain is something else, pride in what you've built from nothing, satisfaction in the community you've helped create. Do you still think about going back? Your wife asks, somehow following the path of your thoughts as she often does. You consider the question carefully. I think about what was, you admit. But this is our home now. She nods, understanding the complexity of your feelings. Our grandchildren will know England only from our stories. The realization strikes you with unexpected force. Your grandchildren and all the generations that follow will be shaped by this displacement. They will be neither fully English nor fully Scottish, but something new formed in the crucible of conquest and exile. Then we must tell the stories well, you say, so they know where they came from, even as they build something new. As twilight deepens, you watch the life of your settlement, children playing, adults finishing the day's work, smoke rising from cooking fires. This wasn't the life you envisioned, but it's the one you fought to create from the ashes of William's destruction. The conquest has changed everything, not just for you and those who fled, but for those who remained as well. England itself is being transformed, its language, laws, architecture and power structures all remade in the Norman image, yet something essential remains, carried in the hearts and minds of people like you. The England that existed before 1066 hasn't been completely erased. It lives on in this Scottish settlement, in the fens where Hereward fights, in quiet villages where old women still tell Saxon tales to children in the Old English tongue. William has conquered the land, but not the spirit of its people. That endures, adapting and persisting, waiting for the day when Saxon and Norman might eventually blend into something new, neither fully one nor the other, but a culture forged in the fire of conquest and survival. As night falls fully, stars appearing in the northern sky, you take your wife's hand and head inside to your simple home. Tomorrow will bring more work, more challenges, more small steps toward building a future. For now, that's enough. The Norman conquest has forever changed what it means to be English, but here, in exile, you remain defiantly, unmistakably Saxon. 3 years have passed since you fled north. Your settlement in Scotland has grown from a desperate collection of refugees into a proper village. Wooden houses with carefully thatched roofs stand in orderly rows. Fields of barley, wheat and oats surround the settlement, broken by small orchards and vegetable gardens. Sheep graze on the hillsides, providing wool that the women spin and weave into cloth. Your forge has expanded. No longer just a simple shelter, it's now a proper workshop with an apprentice besides your son, a young Scottish boy eager to learn the blacksmith's craft. The ironwork you produce is known for its quality throughout the region, bringing traders from as far as Edinburgh to commission pieces. Life has found a rhythm, the acute pain of displacement gradually transforming into a dull ache of nostalgia. You still think of your English village, but increasingly this Scottish settlement feels like home. On a crisp autumn morning, as you work the bellows to heat your forge, a rider arrives in the village. He's English by his dress and speech, travel-worn and urgently seeking the village council. Word spreads quickly. He brings news from across the border. The villagers gather in the small wooden church that serves as both place of worship and meeting hall. The messenger stands before you all, removing his cap as he addresses the assembly. "I bring news of England," he announces. "Hereward the wake has fallen. The fens have been conquered." A murmur runs through the crowd. Hereward, the Saxon nobleman who maintained resistance in the marshy fenlands of East Anglia, had become a symbol of hope for many English. His guerrilla campaign against Norman rule had lasted years longer than anyone thought possible. Now, it seems, even this last pocket of resistance has been crushed. How? Someone asks. William built causeways through the marshes, the messenger explains. His knights could finally reach Hereward's island stronghold. Some say Hereward escaped and lives still, but his forces are scattered. The rebellion is over. The news settles heavily on the assembly. It marks the end of something, the final extinguishing of organised Saxon resistance within England itself. And the Norman hold? Godric asks what many are thinking. It's secure now. The messenger nods grimly. William's grip tightens by the day. Castles rise in every shire. Norman lords rule where Saxon thegns once held sway. French is spoken in court, in church, among the powerful. He pauses, but there's more. William has ordered a great accounting of all England. Every hide of land, every ox, every pig, every beehive. They call it the Domesday Book. This new information causes confused muttering. What purpose does this serve? Someone asks. Taxation, the messenger replies simply. William wants to know exactly what his conquest is worth, down to the last penny. No resource will go untaxed, no wealth unclaimed. After the assembly disperses, discussions continue throughout the village. The news confirms what many have suspected. There will be no quick return to England, no restoration of the old order. William's conquest is complete and systematically reinforced through architecture, law, language, and now this unprecedented survey of resources. That evening, around your family hearth, your son voices what many younger refugees have begun to feel. Perhaps it's time to accept that this is our home now, he says, gesturing to the walls around you. England belongs to the Normans. Your wife gives him a sharp look. England belongs to its people, whether they live there now or here in exile. But what does that mean for us? Your daughter asks. She's married now to a young man from another English settlement, their first child expected in the spring. Are we to be forever looking backward, longing for what's lost, or do we build our future here? It's a question that divides the exile community. The older generation, who remember pre-conquest England clearly, tend to maintain stronger emotional ties to the homeland. The younger people, especially those who were children when they fled or who have been born in Scotland, are more focused on the present reality. As for you, you find yourself increasingly caught between these perspectives. You cherish your memories of England, but you've also invested years of hard work in creating this new life. Your most productive years now lie behind you. Your hair has greyed, your back aches after a long day at the forge. The thought of starting over yet again, even if return to England became possible, exhausts you. Winter descends, harsh as always in these northern lands. The settlement has learned to prepare well. Food stored, firewood stacked, houses sealed against drafts. You spend more time teaching than working now, passing your knowledge to your son and the Scottish apprentice, guiding their hands as they learn the subtleties of working metal. During the darkest days of winter, when outdoor work is limited by weather, the village maintains its tradition of gathering to share stories. The tales of Saxon England have evolved over the years, taking on mythic qualities. Heroes like Harold Godwinson and Hereward the Wake are described in increasingly grand terms. The England of memory becomes more golden, more perfect with each retelling, a paradise lost to Norman greed. You notice how these stories affect the children of the settlement, those born in Scotland who have never seen England. To them, these tales are like the old stories of saints and heroes, inspiring but remote from daily reality. They listen politely but are equally interested in Scottish legends learned from neighbouring children. When spring finally arrives, bringing the promise of renewal, more news comes from England. William the Conqueror is dead. The king who transformed England forever, who ordered the harrying of the north that drove you from your home, died on September 9th, 1087, from injuries sustained during the siege of Nantes in France. According to reports, his final hours were spent in expressions of remorse for the bloodshed of his conquests, particularly the devastation inflicted on northern England. "Too late for regrets," mutters Godric when the news is shared. The dead remain dead. The burned villages remain ashes. But William's death raises new questions. Will his passing weaken Norman control? Might there be opportunity in the transition of power? The answer comes swiftly. William's second son, William Rufus, takes the English throne, while his eldest Robert inherits Normandy itself. The division creates tension between the brothers, but no immediate opportunity for Saxon restoration. Norman control of England continues uninterrupted. More details filter across the border in the following weeks. William's body, having grown enormously fat in his later years, proved too large for the stone sarcophagus prepared for it. When attendants attempted to force it in, the corpse burst, filling the church with such a terrible stench that the funeral had to be hastily concluded. This undignified end brings grim satisfaction to the exiles. Even in death, he brought suffering to those around him, someone jokes darkly, earning nervous laughter, but the initial hope that William's death might somehow change the exile's situation fades. His son appears to be consolidating power effectively. The Norman occupation of England continues as before. As summer unfolds, your family experiences both joy and sorrow. Your daughter gives birth to a healthy son, your first grandchild. The baby is given a traditional Saxon name, a small act of cultural preservation that has become common in the settlement. But within weeks of this happy event, word comes that your wife's brother, who remained in England after the harrying, has died. He had managed to make peace with the new Norman lord of his region and retained a small portion of his land, but never fully recovered from the hardships of those terrible years. The news reopens old wounds. Your wife grieves not just for her brother, but for the separation that prevented her from seeing him one last time. The Conquest divided families permanently, creating unbridgeable distances between people once close. "I should have been there," she says through tears, "to say goodbye properly." You hold her close, knowing there are no words to ease this particular pain. The Norman conquest continues to exact its price, even all these years later. In the wake of this personal loss, a visitor arrives who brings a different perspective on life under Norman rule. He's a merchant who travels regularly between England and Scotland, trading wool and finished cloth. Having business in your settlement, he accepts your hospitality for the night. Over the evening meal, you ask him about conditions in England now, nearly 20 years after the conquest. "It depends greatly on where one looks," he replies thoughtfully. "In the north, where William's harrying left such devastation, recovery has been slow. Fields that once produced grain still lie fallow. Village sites remain abandoned. The Domesday Survey records them simply as waste, worthless for taxation. This confirms what you've heard from other sources. The destruction inflicted on Yorkshire and surrounding counties was so complete that its effects would linger for generations." But elsewhere, the merchant continues, life continues. People adapt. They must to survive. He takes a drink from his cup before continuing. The Norman lords can be harsh masters, demanding higher rents and services than Saxon lords typically required. French is the language of the courts, the nobility, the church hierarchy, but in the fields, in the workshops, in the homes, people still speak English. And they remember what came before, you ask? Or is the old England being forgotten? The merchant considers this. The old remember, they tell stories, as you do here. But for the young, especially those born since the Conquest, the Norman order is simply the way of the world. They have known nothing else. This resonates with what you've observed in your own settlement, the generational divide in how exile is experienced. For those born in Scotland, England exists primarily as stories told by their parents and grandparents. There is one curious development, the merchant adds. In some places, Norman lords have begun to adapt to English ways. They marry English women. Their children grow up hearing English from nurses and servants. Some even prefer English food and drink to what they knew in Normandy. He smiles slightly. The conquerors are, perhaps, being slowly conquered in turn, not by arms, but by the everyday influences of the land they've taken. This idea that English culture might gradually transform the Norman rulers offers a new kind of hope, not the quick restoration once dreamed of, but a slower, subtler reconciliation that might eventually create something neither fully Norman nor fully Saxon. The merchant departs the next morning, but his observations linger in your thoughts. Could the deep divisions created by the conquest eventually heal through this gradual cultural blending? Might your grandchildren or their children someday return to an England where the sharp distinctions between Norman and Saxon have softened? Summer passes into autumn. The harvest is abundant, a cause for celebration in the settlement. Your grandson grows stronger daily, beginning to crawl and babble. Your son manages the forge increasingly independently, allowing you more time to rest your aging body. Life settles into comfortable patterns. Then, as the leaves turn golden, unexpected visitors arrive. A Norman knight accompanied by 2 mounted soldiers and an English translator. Their appearance causes immediate alarm in the settlement. Has King Malcolm's protection somehow failed? Are the Normans now pursuing the exiles into Scotland? The visitors make their way to the centre of the settlement, where Godric and other community leaders, including yourself, gather to meet them. The translator, a middle-aged Englishman with the refined speech of someone educated in the church, addresses you in the familiar tongue. Sir Robert de Montfort, he indicates the knight, Lord of Alnwick by grant of King William Rufus, comes in peace to deliver a message to the English settlements. Tension remains high as the translator continues. King William Rufus offers terms to English exiles who wish to return to their homeland. Those who swear loyalty to him and accept Norman lordship may reclaim lands, not their ancestral holdings, which have been granted to Norman lords, but new allocations in regions still underpopulated due to the troubles of recent years. This announcement sends murmurs through the gathered crowd. Return to England after all these years. It seems both impossible and deeply tempting. Why this offer now? Godric asks suspiciously. The translator confers briefly with the Norman knight before responding. King William faces challenges from his brother Robert in Normandy. He seeks to secure his northern border against possible Scottish intervention. Having English settlers loyal to him in these regions would strengthen his position. The political calculation becomes clear. William Rufus is not offering reconciliation out of kindness, but from strategic necessity. Still, it represents the first opportunity for legal return since the exile began. Those interested should present themselves at Alnwick Castle before winter, the translator concludes. Terms will be formalised there. I remind you that this is an opportunity, not a demand. Those who prefer to remain in Scotland may do so without penalty. After the Norman party departs, the settlement erupts in debate. Some immediately dismiss the offer as a trap, a way to lure exiles back only to punish them for their flight. Others see it as a genuine opportunity to reclaim English identity, even under restricted conditions. Families are divided on the question. Older exiles, who remember the harrying vividly, tend to distrust any Norman proposal. Younger people, especially those struggling to establish themselves in the settlement, see potential opportunity in starting fresh on English soil. Your own family reflects these divisions. Your son, confident in his skills as a blacksmith, believes he could prosper in England, where the need for craftsmen must be great in underpopulated regions. Your daughter and her husband are more hesitant, concerned about the welfare of their infant son in such a transition. As for you and your wife, you find yourselves weighing a complex mix of factors. The pull of homeland remains strong. The chance to die and be buried in English soil holds deep meaning, but you've built a life here, established a place in the community. At your age, another upheaval would be challenging. The debate continues for days, with families throughout the settlement making individual decisions. Some begin preparations to depart before winter makes travel difficult. Others reaffirm their commitment to the Scottish settlement, viewing it now truly as home rather than temporary refuge. In the end, about a third of the community decides to accept the Norman offer. The parting is emotional. These people have shared profound experiences of loss, flight, and rebuilding. Bonds formed in such circumstances run deep. Your family's decision doesn't come easily. After long discussions that sometimes flare into arguments, you reach a compromise. Your son will return to England to establish himself in the new territory. If conditions prove genuinely favourable, your daughter and her family may join him later. You and your wife will remain in Scotland, at least for now. I've moved enough for one lifetime, you tell your son as he prepares for departure, but perhaps I'll visit if these old bones allow it. The day of departure arrives, crisp and clear. Those leaving have packed wagons with essential supplies for the journey and the new beginning. Children run excited circles around the preparations, while adults exchange embraces and promises to send word when possible. As you embrace your son, you press something into his hand. A small iron amulet you forged yourself, incorporating Saxon designs. So you remember who you are, you tell him, even in a Norman England. He fastens it around his neck, the metal gleaming against his skin. I'll never forget, he promises, and I'll teach my children when I have them. Then he mounts his horse, a significant purchase made with the proceeds from selling his share of the forge to the Scottish apprentice, and joins the departing group. You watch until they disappear around the bend in the road, your wife's hand tight in yours, both of you wondering if you'll ever see your son again. Winter arrives, wrapping the settlement in snow and silence. Your forge continues to operate, though less actively than before. Your former apprentice, now a partner, handles most of the physical work while you supervise and advise. Your days develop a new pattern, mornings at the forge, afternoons with your daughter and grandson, evenings by the fire with your wife, sharing memories and simple companionship. As midwinter approaches, you find yourself reflecting on the journey that brought you here. The Norman Conquest shattered your world, driving you from your home, forcing you to rebuild from nothing. The suffering was immense, the losses incalculable. Nothing could ever fully compensate for what William's armies took from you and countless other English people. Yet here you sit, in a warm house built by your own hands, your daughter and grandson thriving nearby, your wife still by your side after all these years of hardship. You've helped create a community that preserves elements of English culture that might otherwise have been lost. Your skills have been passed to a new generation that will carry them forward. It wasn't the life you would have chosen, but facing unimaginable disruption, you and your fellow exiles found ways to endure, to adapt, to create meaning amid displacement. There's a quiet victory in that, though few would recognise it as such. The first letter from your son arrives with the spring thaw carried by a trader making the journey north. His handwriting is uncertain, literacy was not part of a blacksmith's training, but the message is clear. He has established himself in a small village south of the River Tees, where the Norman lord seems fair-minded for his kind. His skills are in demand, and he's been granted a small plot of land to build a forge and home. There are many English here, he writes, though the lord and his men are Norman. We speak our own tongue among ourselves. The village was abandoned after the harrying and is being resettled now. The Norman lord seems eager for skilled craftsmen, especially those who can repair agricultural tools and weapons. The letter continues, describing the challenges of rebuilding in an area that still bears the scars of William's destruction. But there's optimism too, a sense that something new is emerging from the ashes of the old order. It is strange to walk English soil again, your son concludes, both familiar and foreign at once. I think of you often and hope you may visit when summer makes travel easier. You read the letter aloud to your family that evening. Your daughter listens intently, clearly weighing whether her family might eventually join her brother. Your wife says little, but you notice her wiping tears when she thinks you aren't looking. As for yourself, you feel a complex mixture of emotions, pride in your son's resilience, curiosity about this new Norman-ruled England he describes, lingering anger at the forces that necessitated this separation, and, despite everything, a persistent longing for the homeland you once knew. Later that night, unable to sleep, you step outside your house. The Scottish sky stretches vast above you, stars scattered across its darkness like silver filings on a smith's workshop floor. The air carries the first hints of spring, a subtle softening that promises renewal. You think about your own journey, from Saxon blacksmith to refugee to elder of an exile community in a foreign land. None of it was what you expected or wanted. All of it was shaped by the massive historical forces unleashed when William of Normandy decided to press his claim to the English throne. Yet standing here, you realise something important. The Norman conquest changed everything, but it didn't end everything. English life continues, both here in this Scottish settlement and back in England itself, where your son now works metal as generations of your family did before him. The language, customs and skills that define your people have survived, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining essential connections to the past. William's armies could burn villages, destroy crops, and slaughter livestock. They could replace English nobles with Norman ones, English bishops with Norman clergy. They could impose new laws, new language, new systems of land ownership and obligation. But they couldn't erase the deeper currents of culture and identity that flow through generations. Those continue, sometimes underground, sometimes altered by contact with new influences, but never fully extinguished. As you turn to go back inside, to the warmth of your home and the comfort of your wife's presence, you feel a curious sense of peace settling over you. Not because the pain of displacement has disappeared, it never will, but because you've come to understand that your story is part of something larger that continues unfolding even beyond your lifetime. Your grandson will grow up in this Scottish settlement, or perhaps eventually in England, carrying forward elements of Saxon heritage blended with new influences. His children and grandchildren will do the same, each generation making its own adaptations while maintaining connections to what came before. This, you realise, is also a form of resistance, not the dramatic resistance of battlefield confrontation, but the quieter, more enduring resistance of cultural persistence across generations, despite attempts to suppress or replace it. Inside, your wife has woken and sits by the rekindled fire. Couldn't sleep? She asks. You shake your head. settling beside her, thinking about our son, about England, about everything that's changed. She nods, understanding as she always does, and everything that hasn't. Her simple words capture exactly what you've been feeling. In the midst of conquest, displacement, and reinvention, something essential remains continuous. Bonds of family, cultural memory, skills passed from hand to hand, stories told and retold. The fire crackles softly as you sit together in comfortable silence. Two survivors of a historical cataclysm who have found ways to carry forward what matters most, despite everything that's been lost. Outside, the Scottish night continues its slow progression toward dawn. Inside, warmed by fire and companionship, you find yourself looking toward the future with cautious hope, not for restoration of what was, but for the continued evolution of what your people might become in this new world, shaped by conquest and resistance, loss and adaptation, ending and beginning. 2 years have passed since your son returned to England. His letters arrive sporadically, carried by merchants and travellers, making the journey between the countries. Each one provides a window into the evolving reality of Norman-ruled England, now over 20 years since the conquest began. The changes are everywhere, he writes in his most recent letter. Stone churches rise where wooden ones once stood. The Norman lord has begun construction of a great hall unlike anything we knew in Saxon times. Even the fields are worked differently, with new methods brought from across the sea. But his letters also describe continuities, English still spoken in homes and fields, old festivals celebrated alongside new Norman observances, traditional crafting techniques maintained alongside innovations. The picture that emerges is of two cultures existing in uneasy parallel, sometimes clashing, sometimes blending. You should see it for yourself, your son concludes. The road is safe enough now for those who cause no trouble. Come when summer makes travel easier. I have room in my house, and there are matters we should discuss face to face. This invitation stirs something long dormant within you. Despite creating a life in Scotland, England has never stopped being home in your heart. The thought of seeing it again, even an England transformed by Norman influence, pulls at you powerfully. "We should go," your wife says when you share the letter. Her decisiveness surprises you. "I'm not getting any younger. If I'm to see English soil again before I die, it should be soon." Your daughter is less enthusiastic. "It's dangerous," she argues. "The Normans might still view returned exiles with suspicion. She has a second child now, a daughter, and the instinct to protect her family is strong. But after much discussion, a plan forms. You and your wife will make the journey alone, leaving your daughter and her family safely in Scotland. The trip will take place in midsummer when roads are dry and days long. A merchant who regularly travels between Edinburgh and York will guide you for part of the journey, and your son will meet you at a predetermined location for the final leg. Preparations consume the spring months. Though the journey isn't enormous by distance, perhaps 200 miles, it represents a significant undertaking for two people of your age. You find yourself forging small items to trade along the way, while your wife sews sturdy travel garments and prepares remedies for common ailments. The settlement watches these preparations with mixed emotions. Some elders view your planned journey with envy. They too long to see England again, but lack the means or strength for such travel. Others worry that you're undertaking an unnecessary risk. A few even suggest that returning, even temporarily, represents a kind of surrender to Norman dominance. "You've become important to us here," Godric tells you privately. "Your knowledge, your counsel, the community will feel your absence." His words touch you. From desperate refugees, you've become valued members of a thriving settlement. There's pride in that transformation, a sense of having created something meaningful from the ashes of displacement. "We'll return," you assure him. "This is our home now, but I need to see my son and England one more time." The day of departure arrives with fair weather and favourable omens. Your daughter's family accompanies you to the edge of the settlement, the goodbye both emotional and restrained. Your people have learned that partings need not be permanent, that connections can be maintained across distance. "Bring me a stone from English soil," your grandson requests, his young face solemn, "so I can know my other home." "I promise," you tell him, ruffling his hair affectionately. The journey south begins easily enough. Your merchant guide keeps a steady but manageable pace, and the summer roads are relatively good. You and your wife ride sturdy ponies purchased for the journey, a significant expense but necessary given the distance. As you travel, the landscape gradually changes. The rugged Scottish terrain gives way to gentler hills and broader valleys. Villages appear more frequently, fields stretching between them in patchwork patterns. You note differences in building styles, in the cut of people's clothing, in the rhythm of speech. Crossing into England is both momentous and anticlimactic. There's no great wall or gate marking the border, just a gradual transition from one jurisdiction to another, yet knowing you're once again on English soil after years of exile brings a flood of emotion. Your wife reaches for your hand as you ride, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It still feels like home," she says softly, "despite everything." The most visible signs of Norman rule appear as you travel deeper into England. Castles rise from strategic hilltops, not the hasty wooden structures of the immediate post-conquest years, but imposing stone fortifications built to last generations. They dominate the surrounding countryside, physical manifestations of Norman power and permanence. Villages reveal the mixed reality of England under Norman lordship. Some thrive with new construction and busy markets. Others remain half deserted, still recovering from the devastation of the Conquest and its aftermath. In the north especially, where the harrying left such profound scars, abandoned fields and ruins testify to what was lost. You hear French spoken by mounted knights and their attendants passing on the road, while English continues as the language of farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. Two worlds exist side by side, separate yet increasingly interconnected. At an inn where you stop for the night, the innkeeper, learning you're returning exiles, shares his perspective in hushed tones. "The first years were brutal," he acknowledges. "New lords demanding more than the old, punishing resistance harshly. But things have settled somewhat. Some Norman lords have learned they need their English tenants prosperous if they themselves are to thrive. Others remain harsh masters." He shrugs. "It depends greatly on where you find yourself and under whose authority." This matches what you've gleaned from your son's letters, the uneven nature of Norman rule varying significantly by region and individual lord. There is no single English experience of the conquest, but rather thousands of different accommodations and resistances playing out across the landscape. After parting from your merchant guide, you continue south toward the meeting place arranged with your son. The countryside here bears subtle evidence of the harrying. Fewer villages than you remember, more unworked fields returning to wilderness, occasional ruins visible in the distance. But there are signs of recovery too. New construction, fields being reclaimed, life continuing despite the rupture of 20 years past. You reach the arranged meeting point, a crossroads marked by an ancient stone, by midday. Your son isn't yet there, so you and your wife rest in the shade of a great oak, sharing bread and cheese purchased at the last village. "Strange to think this is the same earth we walked before everything changed," your wife muses, running her fingers through the soil. "It feels the same, smells the same." You understand what she means. The land itself remains constant beneath the shifting human arrangements imposed upon it. Saxon, Norman, these are temporary distinctions against the deeper continuity of the land itself. The sound of approaching hoofbeats interrupts your reflections. Your son appears around the bend in the road, riding a sturdy horse better than any he could have afforded in his previous life. He's changed in the 2 years since you last saw him, more confident in his bearing, his clothes of finer quality, his face weathered but healthy. The reunion is joyful, with embraces and exclamations at how well each of you looks. Your son has brought a second horse for the remainder of the journey to his village. "You'll stay through harvest," he insists. "I've prepared everything. The local lord has been informed of your visit and raises no objection. You're welcome in England, at least in my corner of it." The final leg of the journey takes you through countryside that grows increasingly familiar. Though you never lived precisely in this region, the patterns of settlement, the style of fieldstone walls, the particular species of trees all resonate with memory. This is not just England, but northern England, the distinctive landscapes of your ancestral home. Your son's village appears as you crest a low hill, a collection of perhaps 30 households clustered around a stone church, with fields radiating outward. A small stream winds nearby, its banks dotted with willows. Beyond the village stands a manor house of Norman design, and further still, visible on the horizon, the outline of a castle. "The lord lives primarily at the castle," your son explains, following your gaze. "The manor house is occupied by his steward, who oversees the estate. We see little of the lord himself, which most consider a blessing." Your son's home sits near the edge of the village, a substantial timber-framed house with a good thatched roof. Nearby stands his forge, larger and better equipped than the one he left behind in Scotland. Smoke rises from its chimney, tended in his absence by an apprentice, a gangly English youth who emerges to greet your arrival with nervous deference. "This is my father," your son announces with evident pride, "the smith who taught me everything I know." The interior of your son's home reveals prosperity beyond what he could have achieved in the Scottish settlement. Good wooden furniture, woven hangings on the walls, adequate provisions stored in ceramic vessels. The Norman peace, for all its costs, has allowed commerce to flourish, creating opportunities for skilled craftsmen. More surprising is the woman who emerges from the back room to greet you, a young Englishwoman with a toddler on her hip. Your son's expression turns sheepish. "I meant to tell you in my letters," he says. "This is Edith, my wife, and our son, Alfred." This unexpected development, a daughter-in-law and grandson you knew nothing about, momentarily leaves you speechless. Your wife recovers first, stepping forward to embrace the young woman and exclaim over the child. Later, as evening falls and the household settles around the hearth fire, you learn the full story. Edith is the daughter of a local farmer, one of the few who managed to retain his lands after the Conquest through timely submission to Norman authority. The marriage has connected your son to the established community, helping secure his position. "Her father has been invaluable in teaching me the local ways," your son explains, "which Norman officials can be trusted, which are corrupt, how to navigate the new systems of law and taxation." It becomes clear that your son has fashioned a good life here, not by rejecting his Saxon heritage, but by adapting it to new realities. He speaks a few words of French now, enough to communicate with Norman authorities. He has learned the new measurements and money systems imposed by the conquerors. Yet in his home, English is spoken, Saxon traditions maintained. "The boy will know both worlds," he tells you, watching his young son play on the floor. "The England that was, the England that is becoming. He'll need that to thrive." In the days that follow, you immerse yourself in the life of the village. Much is familiar. The rhythms of agricultural work, the social gatherings at day's end, the weekly observance of church rituals. But Norman influence is evident everywhere, in the stone church architecture, in the regular visits of the Lord's representatives collecting taxes and rents, in the occasional passage of mounted knights speaking rapid French among themselves. You spend time at your son's forge, working metal alongside him as in earlier years. His skill has continued to develop. He's mastered techniques you never had the opportunity to learn, adapting to the demands of Norman patrons who want decorative metalwork in styles unfamiliar to Saxon tradition. Yet he also maintains the old ways, teaching his apprentice the techniques passed down through generations of Saxon smiths. Some methods can't be improved upon, he tells the boy. These were perfected long before the Normans came. The villagers, learning of your history, treat you with respectful curiosity. Many have relatives who fled north during the harrying. They ask about life in Scotland, about the English settlements there, about whether King Malcolm truly welcomes Saxon refugees. Some even ask if there are opportunities for them should Norman rule become unbearable. Is it better there? One farmer asks privately. You consider the question carefully. Different, you finally answer. We've built something good from nothing, but it was hard won, and much was lost along the way. The man nods, understanding the complexity behind your words. Sometimes I think of leaving, he admits. When the Norman collectors take so much, we barely survive winter, but this land has been my family's for generations. Leaving feels like final defeat. You recognise the dilemma, the same one you faced years ago, though under more immediate threat. Stay and adapt to conquest, or leave to preserve independence. There's no perfect answer, only different compromises. As summer advances toward harvest, you observe the strange hybrid culture emerging in this once devastated region. The village maintains Saxon seasonal celebrations, but now alongside Norman feast days. Children play games with rules passed down for generations, but also learn new ones introduced by Norman settlers. The blacksmith's craft incorporates techniques from both traditions, creating items that would have been recognised by neither Saxon nor Norman smiths of the previous generation. Something new is being forged here, not purely Saxon, not purely Norman, but a gradual amalgamation born of necessity and proximity. You see it most clearly in the youngest children who have never known a world before the Conquest. To them, this blended reality is simply England. Your wife notices it too. They're becoming something else, she observes one evening. Not what we were, not what the Normans were, something in between. Is that surrender, you wonder aloud, or survival? She considers this. Both, perhaps. The Normans conquered the land, but the land is conquering them in turn. Their children grow up hearing English from their nurses, eating English food, absorbing English ways. In 3 generations, will anyone remember the difference? Oh, there's wisdom in her observation. Already some Norman lords born in England identify more with their birthplace than with Normandy across the sea. They speak English alongside French, marry into English families, adapt to English customs. The sharp distinctions of the immediate post-conquest years are beginning to blur. This doesn't erase the injustice of the conquest or the suffering it caused. Nothing can compensate for the thousands who died during the harrying, the families displaced, the communities destroyed. That remains a wound in the body of the nation, a trauma that will echo through generations. But life continues, adapting to new realities, finding ways forward even through devastation. The resilience you've witnessed, both in exile and here in conquered England, testifies to something enduring in the human spirit. As harvest approaches, bringing with it the time for your return journey to Scotland before winter makes travel dangerous, you find yourself increasingly reflective. Walking alone one evening to a hilltop overlooking the village, you contemplate the arc of your life. From Saxon blacksmith to refugee, to elder of an exile community, to visitor in a transformed England. None of it followed the path you would have chosen. All of it was shaped by forces beyond your control, the ambitions of kings, the movements of armies, the calculations of power. Yet within those constraints, you found spaces for agency, for maintaining what mattered most while adapting to what couldn't be changed. From this hilltop, you can see the Norman castle in the distance, its stone walls catching the last light of sunset. Closer, the village prepares for evening, smoke rising from cooking fires, people returning from fields, children being called home. Despite everything, life continues. Your son joins you on the hilltop, standing silently beside you for a time before speaking. "Will you stay?" he finally asks. "There's room. Edith would welcome the help with the child. The village needs skilled hands." The question doesn't surprise you, though you've known your answer for some time. "Or Scotland is home now," you tell him gently. "We've built a life there, as you have here. Your sister's family needs us. The settlement has become our place." He nods, having expected this response. "But you'll visit again? If these old bones allow it, you promise. And you must bring your family north someday so your sister can meet her nephew." As the sun disappears below the horizon, you both turn back toward the village where lamps now glow in windows against the gathering dusk. Your wife waits at your son's door, holding your grandson, the two of them framed in lamplight. This moment, you realize, captures the strange dual reality created by the Norman Conquest: division and continuity, rupture and resilience. Your family now spans the border, with roots in both conquered England and Scottish exile. The violence of history has scattered you, yet connections remain, adapting to new circumstances. In the weeks that follow, as you prepare for the journey north, you gather small tokens to bring back to Scotland: a stone from English soil for your grandson as promised, seeds from local plants for your daughter's garden, a small pouch of earth from the village where your son now lives. These tangible connections between your two worlds feel important, a way of maintaining continuity despite physical separation. The day of departure arrives with autumn's first chill. Your son accompanies you for the first leg of the journey, the three of you riding in companionable silence through countryside, now showing hints of gold and amber as leaves begin their seasonal change. At the predetermined parting place, the same crossroads where he met you months earlier, the goodbye is emotional but not despairing. You've all survived enough separations to know that connections can be maintained across distance, that absence need not mean ending. "Tell my sister that her nephew grows stronger every day," your son says as he embraces you. "Tell her that England remembers its true self despite everything, and that she and her family will always have a place here if they choose to return." You promise to convey his message, then turn your horses northward. The journey home to Scotland will be more challenging than the journey south, days growing shorter, weather less reliable, your bodies tired from months of travel, but the knowledge of what awaits provides motivation to continue each day. Your daughter and her family, the community you've helped build, the life you've created from displacement. As you ride, your wife often falls into reflective silence. Eventually, she shares her thoughts. "I've been thinking about what we'll tell them when we return," she says. "About England now, about what we've seen." "And what will we say?" you ask. She considers this carefully. That England endures, though changed, that something new is emerging from conquest, not what was, but not entirely foreign either, that life continues, even after devastation. Her summary captures what you've observed, the complex reality of England 20 years after Hastings. Not the simple restoration some exiles still dream of, but not the complete erasure of Saxon culture that once seemed possible either. Instead, a gradual blending, an evolution towards something that incorporates elements of both conquered and conquerors. "And that's enough, you wonder?" "It has to be," she replies simply. "It's what is." This pragmatic wisdom has guided her throughout your shared journey, the ability to accept what cannot be changed while working within those constraints to preserve what matters most. It's an approach that has served your people well, both those who fled and those who remained.